What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to the SFS channel. My name is Gavin, and today I've got my waiver wire pickups list for Week 13 NFL action. Obviously, this list is coming out a day later than usual, but NFL Week 12 has been extended one day due to the Ravens and Steelers matchup being postponed until Tuesday. So here we are. I've got my list for you guys, though, and it's ready to go. So let's not waste any time. Let's hit the intro and get into my waiver wire ads for this week. Before I get into my first player here, if you guys haven't already, make sure you've gone down and subscribed to the channel and turn that bell on so you guys are notified whenever I come out with a new video. And with that being said, my first player to go out and add this week is Kirk Cousins, the Vikings quarterback. And this is a guy who for years has been a fantasy relevant player, but this season a very heavy dosage of running game has slowed down his fantasy production. But the Vikings are starting to throw the football more. They're starting to become a more active passing team. And those very good wide receivers in Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson are producing very nice numbers for Cousins. He's only owned in 40% of leagues, so you guys can go out there and have a sturdy option at your quarterback spot and even stream him at times. He's had 2 games in a row with over 250 yards passing and 2+ passing touchdowns. So Kirk Cousins is on the rise right now. You guys should go snatch him up for your teams. And I think right now with some quarterback injuries out there, this guy can be a very valuable piece for lineups moving into the playoffs. Into my running backs now here. This is a bit of a caution play, but for any and every Dalvin Cook owner in fantasy right now, you guys need to go out and acquire Alex Mattison, whether it's through trade if your deadline hasn't passed, or if he's out there on your waiver wire. This guy needs to be picked up as well. I mean, Dalvin Cook had a scary injury in that game against the Panthers to his knee where he couldn't put any pressure on it, and it looked like he might have his season be over. But then we saw him after halftime come back out and jog around. And he ended up playing, but it was on a very limited basis. So he's probably going to come into this week questionable. Alex Mattison is a high-level backup if he ends up getting some playing time. So you guys need to have this guy rostered. If he ends up stepping up into that role, he's going to be very productive and a very valuable piece. It's going to bail your lineups out in the absence of Cook if that were to happen. So go pick up Alex Mattison just to be cautious. I think it's a safe thing to do. And if something ends up happening to Cook, you guys are going to be happy you went out and got him. My next running back to go out and get for your rosters is Devontae Booker, the Las Vegas Raiders second-string RB. And this is a very similar situation to the Alex Mattison pickup. You guys need to go out and get him because Josh Jacobs had an ankle injury in that blowout loss to the Falcons and was limited to just 7 carries. So with a little bit of uncertainty regarding the Josh Jacobs injury, it is crucial that you guys go out and get Booker, especially if you're a Jacobs owner. You guys need to own him. He's had his moments this season, and he's been very productive at times on the field for the Raiders. So Devontae Booker is a very viable handcuff option, and if you guys can get your hands on him, I think it's wise to do so this week. He could have some value going forward if Josh Jacobs were to miss any time or have any setbacks with that injury. Brian Hill is my next guy up on the list here, and a player that I think has a very nice role in fantasy in the absence of Todd Gurley for however long that's going to end up being, but that knee injury flared up for Gurley this week. And so Hill was promoted into the starting job. He and Ito Smith just about split touches evenly this week and were both highly involved in that game. Hill had 13 carries for 55 yards, which obviously isn't the best clip out there, and you would like to see him used as a receiver a little bit more. But I think for a guy who is being used as a handcuff player, he's a very nice option, and if he gets in the end zone, has some pretty solid fantasy value against good matchups. So Brian Hill, go add him for your teams this week. Who knows how long we're going to be without Todd Gurley. So in the meantime, he's worth the ad and stash away on your bench. Quick note here before I get into my next player. If you guys haven't already and have an opening in your lineups for tonight's game against the Ravens and the Steelers, go out and add Benny Snell because he's expected to be the lead back for that Steelers offense in the absence of James Conner due to him testing positive for COVID-19, as well as Gus Edwards for the Ravens offense. So with that being said, Frank Gore is my next player to pick up here for this week. And we've seen Frank Gore be more productive in fantasy football these last 2 weeks than we've seen him be in a long time. Only rostered in 18.8% of leagues. In 2 straight weeks, he's had 60+ yards on the ground. So Frank Gore is slightly effective right now. He's not the best running back in the world, obviously, at this stage in his career. But for a guy who is a starter on a team and a guy who gets a high number of carries, he is worth a roster spot at the least. Obviously, nearing the end of his career, he doesn't have the highest ceiling anymore in fantasy. But for a guy who can fall in the end zone and is used as a goal line power back, he still has some value, and I would argue is a decent standard play at the flex position. I don't think you guys want to start him in PPR leagues. But for those of you guys in standard leagues, Frank Gore is a solid option and a guy that you could look to for a 1 to 2 week stream. All right, now onto my wide receivers list. Breshad Perriman is my first guy up on the board here. And for the player who was the most owned guy on championship rosters in 2019, Breshad Perriman has had a very underwhelming season this year to this point. But I think that's mainly a product of the Jets' struggles offensively, some injuries he's had, and some lackluster play. But the last 3 weeks here, Breshad Perriman has been very dependable. 9.9 points or more in half PPR scoring each of the last 3 games. So Breshad Perriman is trending up right now, only owned in 12% of ESPN leagues, so I think there's a lot of opportunity to go out and snatch him up. If you guys are in need of a wide receiver, this is definitely a route to go, and we might see him have that hot streak to end the year like he did in 2019 with the Bucs. And then my next guy up here is Breshad Perriman's teammate Denzel Mims, and this is a guy who as a rookie has been very impressive since returning off the injured reserve that he's been on for most of this season. This guy is very explosive and a very nice deep threat for that team, a very athletic player. And the last 3 weeks, we have not seen him dip below 62 receiving yards, so I really like Mims' value the rest of this season. Like I said, Mims and Perriman are very sneaky stash away players, and the next 2 weeks they have the Raiders and the Seahawks on the other side of the ball defensively, so I think those are some very advantageous matchups, and these guys can return some nice value to your teams. So Denzel Mims and Breshad Perriman, worth the ad this week. They're in a good fantasy situation offensively because they're frequently trying to dig themselves out of the hole that they are in that has led to them being winless to this point in the season. T.Y. Hilton is another nice bench stash away from me this week. He is certainly not a must-start player at this point in his career as he's had a very underwhelming season, but he put up a very nice stat line against the Tennessee Titans in a blowout loss, so I have some hope for him going forward. It was by far his best game of this year. And while I don't expect T.Y. Hilton to get back to his old self that we've seen at prior points of his career, I think that he will have increased value from what we've seen so far this season. And I think as he continues to build rapport with Phillip Rivers, he will continue to be used more and more in that offense. So I think he's a guy with a lower ceiling. Obviously, T.Y. Hilton has been a highly injury-prone player in his career, but I think this is a guy who might have some sneaky starts here and be a decent stream flex option for your lineups down the stretch. Maybe my favorite wide receiver to go out and add this week, I think he's made the list the last 3 weeks, is Allen Lazard, the Green Bay Packers' number 2 wide receiver. And this is just a guy who is a very safe option in lineups. He doesn't have the highest ceiling in the world, but he has a very safe floor. And that Aaron Rodgers-led offense, he is going to get his targets in Green Bay and get his opportunities because Aaron Rodgers has a deep level of trust for Lazard. Allen Lazard, 10 fantasy points this week against the Bears. A very solid unit defensively that the Green Bay Packers just tore up. I love Allen Lazard's playoff schedule the rest of the season as well, so I think he has a decent amount of upside in those games. He's probably your safest lineup bet out of these guys I have on my list this week, and a guy I think in the fantasy playoffs can put up sturdy wide receiver 2 numbers. So if you're needy at the wide receiver 2 position, Allen Lazard is a guy to go out and target for your teams this week. And then finally, into my tight ends list here, Logan Thomas has made this list many times this season, and I'll give it to him one more time here after his Thanksgiving performance where he had 4 for 20 and a touchdown. This guy doesn't have the highest ceiling in the world, but he has a very safe floor and is a great streaming option at that position. This guy is barely owned in any leagues, but is currently tight end 15, so he is right on the borderline of being a top 12 low-end tight end 1 producer. So Logan Thomas is a very safe stream option, like I said. And if you guys are looking to have a replacement option for a player like Rob Gronkowski on a really weird late Week 13 bye week like the Tampa Bay Bucs are on right now, Logan Thomas is a great option to go out and snatch up for your lineups. And then my last guy up here on this list is a player I've talked about frequently this season on Waiver Wire ads videos, but I still don't understand why Robert Tonyan is only owned in 40% of fantasy leagues. This guy is the tight end 6 right now, so there's absolutely no reason he shouldn't be owned in closer to 80 or 90% of leagues. I mean, you're talking about a guy who has top-end numbers at that tight end position and has been putting up top-end numbers all season long. I mean, he's had his down weeks, but Robert Tonyan has had a high touchdown count this year and has had some very explosive down-the-field plays as well. This guy's a fantastic receiving option as that tight end in that Green Bay offense, and I think this is a very underrated player. Like I said, he needs to be owned more closer to 75, 80%, even creeping closer towards 90% because this is a top 12 option, which means he should be starting on one team in your league. Just to put in perspective how good Tonyan has been this season, he is only averaging 0.4 points per game less than Mark Andrews this season in half PPR scoring. And for a guy who is regarded by many as a top tight end in fantasy football, this just shows how good Robert Tonyan has been this year, and he's been consistent all year long. This isn't a guy who's just put up 1 or 2 nice games. He has been a consistently good player in lineups and has a decent floor as well. Aaron Rodgers trusts him, so you guys need to go out and add this guy. Robert Tonyan can make a difference in your teams, and he should be added in nearly all leagues. Those are my Week 13 waiver wire pickups. If you guys enjoyed today's video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, and turn that bell on so you guys are notified whenever I come out with a new video. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.